Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as you all know by now, every single day I beam your ears to a different part of the world. And although, yes, I do feature many stories from Silicon Valley, I also take the responsibility of shining a light in every country around the world and the emerging, thriving tech scenes there incredibly seriously. And in our 2,000 interviews we've recorded, I think I've featured people and startups and businesses in over 70 different countries. And I know we have people listening in over 165 different countries. So there's still a lot of work to be done there. But after reading about an inspirational lady called Odun, who is a Forbes Africa 30 under 30 tech pioneer and co-founder at a company called PiggyVest, which is based in Nigeria, I felt compelled to find out more because PiggyVest is West Africa's first digital savings and micro investment app with a specific focus on restoring trust and democratising financial services for Gen Zs and millennials in Nigeria. And they've built a strong base of, I think, 3.5 million users since launching in 2016. And the platform has paid out over $582 million to users. So when I heard that she was in the UK, I jumped at the chance to interview her. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to London, where Odun is going to discuss how she's revolutionising savings and investments culture amongst Nigerians with technology. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are, what you do, and share your origin story with everyone?
Hi, everyone. My name is Odun Eweniyi. I'm co-founder and COO of PiggyVest. PiggyVest is a FinTech company in Nigeria. And what we do is help young people in Nigeria and eventually across Africa save little amounts of money daily, weekly, monthly towards target. And then we also provide them with micro investment opportunities that earn them competitive rates. So really the appeal is that with us, you can save as little as $10 a day. 10 cents a day, actually. And you can invest as little as $10 for competitive rates. So we try to be extremely affordable and accessible just because we know that there is a massive need for democratization in Nigeria and across Africa, especially when it comes to financial services. My origin story. I have a bachelor's degree in computer engineering, and right out of university, I met up with my friends who are still my co-founders today, and we started a company. Now, that company didn't succeed, but we've been working together now for about 10 years. 6 years ago, we got the idea for PiggyVest, and that kind of leads us up until this moment.
Wow, that's amazing. I've got to ask, what was the story behind PiggyVest and you setting out to solve these problems with technology? Because there's got to be a story there, right?
You know, it's actually an interesting one. So on December 31, 2015, it was the end of the year. So everyone was on Twitter, myself and my co-founders just casually, talking. And then a tweet went viral. It was a Nigerian woman who'd been saving in an actual wooden box every day for the entire year. So she broke the box and she put the photos of all of the money she'd accumulated on Twitter, and it just went crazy. So everyone was talking about it, but everyone wanted a wooden box. My co-founder, Joshua, who also is our chief marketing officer, kind of brought that link to our WhatsApp group chat and said, what if we could create a digital version of the piggy bank? And that's quite literally how we started going back and forth on what would be PiggyVest today. When we launched it 2 weeks later, it was actually called piggybank.ng. We didn't become PiggyVest until February 2019 when we added investments to the platform because it was purely savings at best.
Wow, I just absolutely love that story and how it began there from that viral tweet. But we'll have people listening from all over the world. Some will completely get it and others might not. So can you tell me a little bit more about why it really is so essential to restore trust and democratise financial services for Gen Zs and millennials in Nigeria, just to help everybody listening understand the scale of the problem that you're solving here?
So in Nigeria, right, in 2016, especially when we started, we had 22 banks, right? It's not that there weren't banks, there were banks. But we also have this massive population of people, 200 million, of which 2/3 are young people. Now, what we discovered then was, first, we have no credit infrastructure. So that means that unlike the UK and the US, we do all our payments in cash, in bulk, and upfront. Now, imagine if every time you had to rent a house, you paid in full a year or 2 years in advance. And you do the same for your car, and you do the same for everything else. You do the same for your education. We don't have credit cards. And so that means that people absolutely have to save. Now, why can't they save? Because one, when you do try to save with a bank, there are all these pesky charges attached to it, right? Account maintenance charge, ATM maintenance charge, SMS fees, ATM withdrawal fees, which means that you might end up with less than you started out with because our interest rate from the banks doesn't actually compare to what our inflation rate is. And on the other hand, you could try to invest in treasury bills and government bonds, but what we discovered was most asset managers in 2016 especially had a minimum ticket size of ₦1 million. So that means that before you can access an investment opportunity, you had to have the equivalent of, I think, £1,500 or $2,500. And most young people in Nigeria don't earn anywhere near that, right? Our average monthly income hovers anywhere from $250 to maybe $800. So we were being actively excluded from participating, even though we were technically financially included. That's why we needed democratization. We needed a platform that would allow young people to save and invest in bite size that they can afford so that they can start the journey early to building wealth. That's really why we started PiggyVest.
It's such a powerful story, and I'm so glad that we've got you on here to share it today, because I think things like this need to be shared around the world, and equally the difference that you're making with technology. But on that side of things, can you tell me a little bit more about how you're actually revolutionizing savings and investments culture with this technology? Because, again, it's amazing what you're doing here.
Honestly, I think it's mostly just the simplicity and the ease of it all, right? You could go to the website or download the app, and in 3 minutes, you're on your way to saving. Because what we do is you sign up, you put in your base details, and then we're asking you, so how much do you want to save daily? Or is it weekly? Or is it monthly? And because we accept literally like the lowest possible amounts, you can start with anything, even if you wanted to test the platform. The big thing here is that we're changing your psychology of how you approach money. We're not allowing you or asking you to make that manual effort of remembering to save. Once you set the instructions, the app just continues to debit you until you reach your target. So most people don't even realize it, but before you know it, 3 months have passed by and you've amassed quite a bit of money, or you're using our fixed deposit option, which allows you to save for a period of time, get interest while you lock it in. So what we've done is kind of build an easy platform, but one that can help people be very disciplined about their spending. So it's a double-edged sword, as people like to call it. We have all of these tiny behavioral changes where we'll charge you an early withdrawal fee for trying to take out your money before time. So that means that you actually do have to commit to the act of saving, and we automate it so you don't have to think about it. The platform does it for you.
And what I absolutely love about this is, since you had that idea and you went out to solve this problem and make a difference with technology, you've built an incredibly strong customer base of something like, I think, 3.5 million users since launching in 2016. And I also read before you came on here today that in 2021 alone, the platform paid out over $582 million to its users. And I think that brings everything to life perfectly. But can you share some other stats to the audience just to help people understand the adoption that you've secured and the difference you're making here?
Of course. Yeah. No, that number is correct. Yeah, we did pay out that number in 2021. And now I'm sure since you last read it, we've now like almost hit 4 million people. And every month we have 1.2 million people actively using the platform. So if we had to look at the total transaction volume, we have exceeded 1.5 billion in how much has been saved in total on the platform. We have incredible social engagement. So that means that we have, I think on Twitter, we have almost 150,000 followers. And we have pretty much the same on Instagram. We have users, we have engagement on TikTok. We try to meet our users where they are. And because they're millennial and Gen Z, it's just easy to kind of speak to their needs and speak their language. So we do have a lot of outreach programs, but we're very proud of like the progress that we've made, obviously.
And on this podcast, we've had, nearly 2,000 different startups on here, and significant growth, especially in the world of tech. Especially in the world of tech, is largely associated with huge marketing spends and investors, etc. So the question I've got to ask is, how has PiggyVest managed to achieve all this without any additional funding since I think it was like $1 million seed raise, which was over 4 years ago? Because again, it's phenomenal what you've achieved here.
Right. I think so. The background is obviously that we were Nigerian founders, right? In 2016, when we got this idea, we tried to raise for it right off the bat. But a lot of the feedback that we got was, this app isn't going to make it. The banks are going to kill you. And we understood it because it was a relatively new idea. It had never been done before. And so we went right back to work, right? And myself and my co-founders put everything that we had into it, and bootstrapped it for 18 months before we got our first $50,000 in funding. So because of that, and because of that experience, it was very clear to us that to have any kind of appeal for a product like this, we had to show traction. So after we went to work, by the time we raised the 1.1 million in seed funding, we had 55,000 registered users on the platform. But it was still very, very minimal to our perspective, because to raise the big bucks, especially when you're a fintech company in Nigeria, Black founders, we have several layers of minorities involved in this project. We realized that it was just easier for us to boots to the ground, keep working. And then when we've showed undeniable, extremely obvious traction, one that no one can actually question, we can go back to market. So we've operated extremely lean. In the first year of operations, it was just 3 of us. Our CEO, CTO doing the coding, Joshua, who got the idea and who's our CMO, literally answering the phones, and me handling everything else. There was actually a phase for I think 6 months where I was the one handling the social media by myself. So before we started to bring on people, we went as far as we could alone, and then we added 4 more people who had already worked with us on previous startups to fill in the other roles before we started to do hiring push. So it was just operating in a very, very lean fashion, and also applying the learnings that we'd gotten from our previous startups to make sure that we built it into something that had a solid foundation before trying to raise additional funding.
And again, before you came on the podcast, I was doing a little research, and I also read that Nigeria's barriers to boosting wealth creation through things like investments are equally as daunting, with the average entry point to investing with formal financial institutions standing at something around 8% of average Nigerians' annual income. I mean, can you expand on the scale of that problem too, and the role of technology in bringing in new alternatives?
Honestly, I'll tell you now that I think tech has massively improved that, because savings and investment was at 8% before, but I think it's now across Nigeria and Africa around 15%, and this has been progress made since 2016, and it coincides with the advent of tech companies and fintech companies into our ecosystem. Right? Ease is the biggest problem. The young people make up 2/3 of Nigeria's population. Previously, this wasn't a demography that people considered building dedicated products to serve until the fintech company started to do it. right? Everyone just ran as usual. And, there'll be pushback for this, but it was business as usual until 2016. And then when we got Paystack, and then we got Flosserwave, and then all of these companies started to come. And then attention started being paid from a financial perspective to millennials and to Gen Z. We are the future. And I think that tech has done a fantastic job bringing alternatives to the market. You can prove this by just seeing the average participation of Nigeria within the crypto ecosystem and the crypto sector. Nigerians are some of the largest block of participants in crypto. And you can then look at stocks, the advent of companies like Bamboo, like Chaka, and all of the neobanks. You can see that tech is kind of making its own space and making it so that the entry point is far lower than, the barrier to entry is lower than it used to be, which is increasing how people participate and the percentage of people who are now participating in Nigeria's financial sector.
And talking to you today, you really come across incredibly humble despite your huge achievements. And again, when I was doing a bit of research, I saw that you've also were a Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 Tech Pioneer awardee too. I mean, can you tell me more about what that means to you?
I always say that I think it's always nice to be seen. So I'm always grateful for all the recognition. More than anything, this is what we wanted, right? When we started the company, it was so it could grow into something like this, making as much impact as possible. But also, we can't say we're not happy about the recognition. Forbes, for us, all three of us, were really excited about it. And it just means, and it goes to validate everything that we've been doing. We personally believe in the Nigerian market. More than anything, I believe in the millennial and Gen Z generation of Nigerians. And to be working for them and to be building for them and to get that recognition, I think is a really good thing. It helps, in addition to everything, to continue to motivate us to do more.
Fantastic. And something I also try and do on this podcast every day is episode and put somewhere in the world on the map, not just Silicon Valley, and show the difference that technology is making around the world. So can you tell me more about the tech scene in Nigeria and across Africa, and what excites you about the future and the role technology is going to play across the region?
Honestly, I'll first tell you about Lagos, and then I'll tell you about the tech scene. There is this kind of energy here. Where when we get to work, young people in Lagos are every day just working. People who've been to Lagos will tell you there's hustle in Lagos. And that hustle is seen in Nigeria's entire tech scene and then across Africa. Young people are building. It's still super early days, so I'm very excited for the future. Every day there's a new company being launched. In fact, we now feel like the older class of startups just because of the sheer number of companies that have been launched since we started in 2016. This year, if you read funding announcements, you see that despite the slowdown that we're seeing in the rest of the world, Africa's funding is still going strong just because there is new things being built every day across different sectors: FinTech, health tech, agri-tech, education, B2B commerce, B2C commerce. There's so much here. And, it's probably uniquely because Africa has, its own set of challenges. But for us, those represent opportunities that we can now solve for, that we've begun to solve for. I think since Stripe's acquisition of Paystack, we've seen Silicon Valley turn its attention fully to Africa to see what we're building. So I'm very excited about the future, definitely. I think that we're still in early days. It's still very nascent. We're nowhere near where India is today. And, that means that there's still a ways to go. And so there's so much more to come from Africa, from crypto to FinTech. It's honestly so exciting. P2P, merchant acquisition is all just kind of springing up daily. If you follow the news, you can get dizzy from funding announcements from TechCrunch every day. So there is this kind of massive energy push that's still happening, and that will continue to happen for the foreseeable future.
That's so great to hear. And what about yourselves? What's next for PiggyVest? Where do you go from here?
There is such a long way to go. We actually just sent an email to our users today around what we've been working on over the past 6 months to 1 year. And in that email, what we acknowledged was there is still so much to do. PiggyVest is at 4 million users, but Nigeria is at 200 million people. And we think that we can, 50 million of those people are valid users for us. So there's still so much that we can do for people. There is so much we can do in terms of savings. There's so many asset classes for investment that we can democratize. And then there's other aspects of financial services that we've not even started to work on. So what's next? Where do we go from here? It's literally infinite. So we tell people that we started PiggyVest to give people the power to better manage their own finances. And we do that by democratizing access to financial services. We started with savings, we've tacked on investments, and we've just started to attack, micro entrepreneurship. But there are still so many things to do. 99% of Nigeria has no insurance. Credit is still a big problem. So there isn't a limit to the problems that we can begin to solve, as long as our view is to make it easy for people to do it in small bite sizes.
Well, we started the podcast today at the very beginning of your story, the origin story, what put you on this path. And as we've come full circle now, I think none of us are able to achieve any amount of success without a little help along the way. So to restore the balance in the universe, is there a particular person that you're grateful towards who maybe helped you get where you are today that you'd just like to mention and give a bit of a shout out to?
Of course, always. The first investor we got was in 2014. His name is Olumide. He wrote the first 25K check into our company then and has actually continued to invest in literally every other idea that we've had since then. So we're always particularly grateful to him. I am actually sure he's sick of me mentioning his name in interviews, but we can't stop just because he set us on this path. And without that check in 2014, I actually don't think that we will be here today.
Oh, man, absolutely love that. And for anyone listening that would just like to find out more information about PiggyVest or contact your team or find out more about your story or anything we've talked about today, what's the best starting point for everything?
Well, the best place to get to us is via the website, www.piggivest.com. But we are also across socials at PiggyBankNG. So we've kind of PiggyBankNG across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere else. We respond pretty fast, or you can just email contact@piggivest.com and they'll reassign you to the right department. We're very accessible. Response time is really quick. And as we continue to grow, we hope that everyone wants to join us on this journey, even if you are a Nigerian in diaspora.
Well, I always say at the end of every episode that technology works best when it brings people together. And I love what you're doing at PiggyVest here and creating this first digital savings and micro investment app with a focus on restoring trust and democratizing financial services for this next generation, Gen Z and millennials. I think it's so important and how you're using technology here. Kudos to you and your team. But more than anything, just thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you, Neil. This was actually fun. Thank you.
If you ever find yourself endlessly doom scrolling down news feeds that just fill your head and timelines with nothing but bad news and negativity, or flicking through TV channels that do exactly the same, I sincerely hope that today's conversation was the perfect antidote and has restored your faith a little. Because the way in which Odun has built PiggyVest to make a difference to the young people of Nigeria is nothing short of inspirational. As is the fact that they've paid out more than $582 million to its users. But for me, I also enjoyed shining a light on the tech scene in Nigeria and how Silicon Valley are now looking to Africa and looking at how they're innovating, what they're building, etc. And there is so much more to come. And for those reasons alone, I cannot tell you how much I love this one. And now I invite you to share your story. Wherever you're listening in the world, I hope today's episode has inspired you to make a difference too. And if you'd like to come on here and share yours, there's an open invite for you. So email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @NeilC.Hughes, and we'll keep this conversation going. So today's episode was all about how technology is being used to restore trust and democratise financial services for Gen Zs and millennials in Nigeria. But what are we going to talk about tomorrow? What are we going to pivot? We're going to talk about a completely different topic again. What that topic is will be determined by the wheel of fortune, which I'm spinning now. And wherever it stops, that will be tomorrow's topic. But I'm not going to tell you where it stops. You know the rules by now. For that, you've got to come and join me again tomorrow, where I'll be waiting quietly in your podcast feed with another inspirational story in tech. But Before I sign off for the day, just a big thank you for listening as always from me. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.